Hi, my name is Lukewarm Flapjack, and I am a real-life urban planner. A little bit about me. I am a urban planner in the local government sector, but I have experience in the private sector as well as in the city management sphere. I have about 5 years of experience working with local governments and issues ranging from current to long-range planning, as well as consultant experience doing management consulting for city managers and city manager offices all around the country. I have two master's degrees, one in urban planning and one in public administration, and my focus has been primarily around housing and development issues. It's a very exciting time in the world of urban planning with channels like Not Just Bikes, City Planner Plays, Strong Towns, and others, as well as games like City Skylines and SimCity, getting people more interested in what urban planning is and how to become one. So today I want to talk about what is urban planning, what it is, what it isn't, and how you can get involved if you're interested in learning more. So what actually is urban planning? Urban planning is the field specializing in the when, where, and how of cities' growth and development. There are two main branches of city planning. The first is long range planning, and the second is current planning. When people think about urban planning, they often think about long range plans. These are your comprehensive plans, your land use plans, your housing plans, your utility plans, your thoroughfare master plans. If you can think about it, cities probably plan for it, and urban planners probably have a part in that. But long range planning is only half of what planners do, and in many cases, it's actually more like 20% of what we do. Current planning is the actual application of the codes and ordinances set forth by the governing body of your community and guided by the master plans approved and guided through long range planning. And this is more like, again, 80% of what planners actually do, and it's the more mundane day to day stuff. Things like sign permits, special use permits, special event permits, and building permits. And while it's not super glorious, this is the meat and potatoes of what planning actually is. When it comes time to build a new apartment complex or a shopping center, the current planning is how you actually translate those goals and objectives set in your comprehensive plans into actual construction and products and developments. So while it's not super sexy, it is very important. So now that we've talked a little bit about what urban planning is, let's talk about what it is not. Games like City Skylines and SimCity, while very fun, do give the impression that city planners have a lot more control than they actually do. In reality, city planners are analysts. We review projects, we apply the codes, and we sometimes give recommendations of approval or denial. But at the end of the day, we do not get to decide whether or not a shopping mall goes in next to your home or if a cool new coffee shop opens up down the street. The core function of an urban planner is to take the information of a specific project, compare it against the approved codes and ordinances of the city, and then synthesize it into a staff report, which is presented to members of the planning commission or city council or other decision-making body. So that way they have a complete formed idea of what the project is, how it fits into approved plans, how it fits into land use assumptions, and general planning theory. Using that information, the governing body can make a recommendation of approval or denial and then decide on what gets built at the end of the day. It's important to note that planners are not the decision makers in this scenario. Only the elected officials are. Planners only serve as an advisory body. We are professionals, we are trained technicians, we are here to provide a unbiased recommendation or analysis depending on the jurisdiction that you live in. Some jurisdictions do not allow planners to make recommendations of approval or denial, but only to provide the facts of the case as known by the planners themselves. In some jurisdictions, planners do get the opportunity to make a recommendation, but again, in no jurisdiction do planners get to make the final decision unless it is through an administrative review process, which is very specific and often for very minor things. Another common myth perpetuated by games like City Skylines and SimCities is that planners have control over where roads go. In reality, city planners mostly deal with private development projects. While we have a certain amount of sway with thoroughfare master plans, the majority of road construction actually falls to public works departments. People like city engineers, traffic engineers, and staff engineers handle most of the locating and siting of new roads and road improvements. So while we don't get to decide where roads go, we do get to help decide what gets built on them. So now that we've talked a little bit about what urban planning is and is not, I want to talk about what a day in the life of an urban planner is. Now, for privacy reasons, I will not be going into the office to show you what that looks like, but I will describe it here and now. At the end of the day, urban planning is an 8 to 5 office job. And while I certainly have meetings after work with city council or planning commission or public engagement sessions on projects that I have, the vast majority of my time is spent in front of a computer just like this. And it's pretty much the same as any other office job. To illustrate that point, the first thing that I do when I get into work each morning is sit down and open up my email. I often spend the first couple hours of my day responding to questions from applicants or members of the public who have concerns with their project that I'm reviewing or with an item up for the Planning Commission or City Council agenda in the upcoming weeks, respectively. In addition to this, I respond to questions and requests for data from members of the City Council or Planning Commission, often channeled to me through the manager that I have or my department director. Now, it's very important that these questions from elected officials come through my manager or my director, because in a city manager structured government like the city that I work in, it's actually not allowed for the elected officials to have direct communication and request information from city staff. Once I'm done checking my emails, the rest of my day is spent either in meetings or doing project reviews. These meetings often include things such as pre-applications. So city staff sits down with the applicant and they go over the project or their proposed project before they do a formal submittal to give them initial preliminary feedback, make sure that they have all the required documents, and then get them sent on their way to have a successful application process. So at the beginning of my week, a lot of it's focused around reviewing these projects that are upcoming, getting notes together, collaborating with other departments such as water utilities, police, fire, development engineering, you name it, and then communicating those notes back to the applicant during pre-application meetings. So that way they have a positive experience with the city and we streamline our application process to make things go as fast as possible. While it's often a trope that local government is inefficient, I'm very proud of my city in that we have extremely fast turnaround times compared to other communities. Oftentimes, if the applicant does everything right, they can be done in permanent hand within 2 weeks. That is very uncommon, and it's something that I'm very proud of with my community. Once my meetings are done for the day, I spend the rest of my day doing things such as project review for formally submitted applications. These project reviews include applying the development standards passed by our city council to incoming projects that are approved both administratively and by the planning commission or city council, and include details as minor as the location of bollards within a trash enclosure, all the way up to how it fits into the neighborhood and how sidewalks are constructed, and everything in between. This is where the majority of my time is spent, and in my opinion, it's some of the most interesting work that we do. When I'm done with this part of my job, something new is constructed, and I get to know that I had a say in how that was built, making sure that it was built to the best way possible and the way that benefited my community the most. So while it is the most mundane and the most probably boring part of my job, I do think this is where the rubber really meets the road and planning actually turns into reality. Once the workday is over, that's not necessarily where it stops. On some days of the month, planning commission and city council happens, and this is probably where most people will lose interest in the idea of becoming an urban planner, because unfortunately public speaking is a very important part of the work that we do. While we're mostly analysts and we don't necessarily always make a recommendation of approval or denial, we do have to make sure that we're concisely and appropriately communicating the information that we've analyzed in our staff reports to the planning commission and city council, who are the decision makers that run the show. While you spend a lot of time preparing for these meetings with your manager or director, it's often impossible to be fully prepared for what's going to happen during the meetings themselves. While you try your best to commit all the project information to memory, things like parking, things like public comments that have been brought up or concerns or stormwater or landscaping and buffering, sometimes you'll just be caught completely blindsided by a random question from a council member that you were not prepared for. So one of the difficult things about presenting to planning commission and city council is knowing that you just might not know. So having a cool head under pressure and making sure that you're able to either pivot your response or defer to a different professional or to your manager or supervisor is extremely important. If you're still here, that means there's probably a pretty good chance that you do want to become a city planner, and I haven't scared you off with the public speaking portion. If you are, there are a lot of great ways to break into the field, both those that require a formal education and some that require, while still in education, maybe not a master's degree or a 4-year bachelor's. For sure, the most expeditious way and likely surefire way to get a job in the urban planning field is to go get a 4-year degree and then go on to do a 2 or 3-year master's degree in urban planning. This is the route that I went, granted with a little bit of a twist. Personally, I went on to get 2 master's degrees at once, but the Master of Urban Planning was what got me into my very first position while I was still in school. My program at a state school required for me to do an internship with a local city. That city really enjoyed having me there, and when I was getting close to graduation, they offered me a full-time position with the city. Unfortunately, that community did not pay enough, so I decided to move somewhere else, but there are always options to move into cities through the intern to planner pipeline. The field of urban planning is very understaffed. It is an older field, and you'll find that there are a lot of positions available or coming available in cities near you or with non-governmental agencies in your area. If you don't feel like a formal education is necessarily the route for you, that does not mean that you cannot become an urban planner. For sure, there are going to be a little bit of difficulties along the way, but I've seen planners who start out doing things like permit review as a permit technician for cities, which often only require a high school diploma, and then taking that experience, building on it, and then becoming an AICP planner through years of experience. The AICP is the American Institute of Certified Planners, which is ran by the American Planning Association and is the primary accreditation board for planners in the United States. While the amount of experience required to become AICP scales with the amount of education that you have, there is no required amount of education to become one. So, for instance, if you have a Master's of Urban Planning, you only need 2 years of professional experience doing planning work to become an AICP. Now, planning work sounds like you have to be a planner to do it, but that's not the case at all. The APA has a whole list of different activities that are considered planner functions, which you can do even if you're not a planner. These include things like supporting the decision-making criteria of public officials, providing data analysis services, working towards that, engaging the public in planning-related issues. There are a whole list of different things that can apply towards planning experience. So it's very possible to find a role that's not as a planner that can be used as credit towards your AICP certification. It's also important to note that not all cities require AICP or a planning degree in the first place to become a city planner. Oftentimes, tangential experience doing plan review can be enough to work your way into an associate planner position, and from there, you can gain professional experience needed to become a fully fledged planner as an actual planner. So, at the end of the day, there are a wide range of opportunities and routes to become a planner that don't necessarily require an education. No matter which route you want to take to become a city planner, there are some essential skills you have to excel in your job if you get one. The most important of these is public speaking. I know I've already said it before, but I want to reiterate it here. Even if you become a city planner that does primarily data analysis, you will be expected to do some form of public speaking at some point in your career. Whether that's a presentation to a governing body, a subcommittee, or maybe a public hearing event, you have to be able to be comfortable presenting to a board of people or a group of people that might not necessarily be super happy with what you have to say to them. So having that ability to remain calm under pressure or have conflict negotiation or de-escalation skills is going to prove invaluable to you, not only as a planner, but also in your personal life. In addition to the public speaking soft skill, there are two hard skills that I have to stress are super important. The first of these is a firm understanding of GIS and the backends that power it, and the second is Excel. Now, GIS, the first of them, is Geospatial Information Systems, specifically ArcGIS powered by Esri. Unfortunately, for better or worse, Esri and ArcGIS are the mainstay of local governments and honestly, most organizations that work with geospatial data. Even though there are great open source options like QGIS, ArcGIS is the standard. If you know how to make beautiful maps and diagrams in ArcGIS, you will not only be able to help communicate your story for the project that you're working on to the listeners more effectively, but you'll also be able to explain the back end of why things might not work out when you're asked to do something that might be out of the scope of what GIS is capable of doing. Having a little bit of background in what geospatial information databases look like and how they function has helped me countless of times when I have received an absolutely insane data request from a member of the council or from a member of the managerial staff that don't fully understand what's going on, but being able to understand and communicate whatever complications you might have to that staff or to that elected official will help you immensely. It's not good enough to just say, I can't do it. It's more important to say why you can't do it. And even if you have a basic rudimentary understanding where you can say, I think this is what's going on, that will pay back dividends. I cannot stress that enough. Now, the second tool, Excel. I know it sounds mundane, but you'd be surprised just how many people don't fully understand the power of Excel and the ways that you can automate certain sorts of data processing through it. Now, personally, I prefer to use Python or Pandas databases just for the wow factor. I mean, there's certainly a lot of benefit to being able to pull and scrape data from the internet to do, large-scale demographic data analysis, especially when it comes to like census data. But Excel is a mainstay. You're going to have it no matter where you go, and having a firm understanding of things like pivot tables, of Power Query, and these power user tools baked into Excel will not only help you automate a lot of your data processing responsibilities, but it'll also help kind of prove your worth as somebody that is technologically adept. And it doesn't take that long to figure out, and especially if you understand database structure, which you'll kind of learn through working with GIS, it'll kind of transfer over pretty well over to Excel. At the end of the day, all data is just rows and columns. It's just presented in different formats. So getting a firm understanding of both GIS and Excel and kind of a power user level will really sell you as a planner, as somebody that can contribute to the department as a whole, even beyond your planning abilities, and ultimately serve you well in no matter what career you go into, even if you decide not to stay in urban planning. As we come to the end, I just want to recap some of the key points that we've talked about today. Urban planning is an incredible field. It's very fast growing. There's a huge demand for planners all around the world, especially in North America and areas of the country that are growing very rapidly. It is a very cool experience to be able to work in a city where you can watch it grow and develop and have a hand in that process. And while you might not be able to play God like you do in City Skylines or SimCity, you do get to have a tangible impact. And there's nothing better than seeing a project that you work on build up, and then before you know it, you're helping do the final occupancy inspection, and you get to walk through the halls of it after it's been constructed, and you've seen it from the plans laid out in front of you to the foundations stuck into the ground all the way up to where the roof is capped off and the doors are open. So there are a lot of different ways to get into urban planning, and not all of them require an education. If you feel like it's something that you're passionate about, there is a route for you to get into it. It might take you a little bit longer if you don't want to go down the formal education route, but there is a path. And, there are some skills you need to learn. Unfortunately, urban planning is not for everybody. Having those public speaking skills, having some level of, knowledge of data is going to be massive for you. And, if you can do those things, if you feel like you are going to be able to handle both the exciting parts of the job and the very mundane parts of the job, urban planning might be for you. So if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to ask down below. And if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. I'm going to try and do some more videos like this, maybe not necessarily about becoming an urban planner, but maybe what it's like, what we do on a day-to-day basis, maybe dive into something like plan review. If there's a specific topic or issue that you'd like for me to dive into, let me know. I'd like to tie this channel into not only just the core functions of what being an urban planner is like, but also apply my knowledge to real world experiences. So if you have a recommendation, please give it. I'd love to find out what you guys have got in mind, and thanks for watching.